Today we're going to be learning how to write effective paragraphs using a formula called TBEAR. So let's get started. You've probably been asked before in school to write paragraphs. This could be in order to answer questions, or it might have been writing essays where you had to write paragraphs. Sometimes your teachers tell you, oh, you've written a very good paragraph, and sometimes you might have written very weak paragraphs. Some of you might also still be struggling to even write a full paragraph. So what makes a good paragraph? Have you ever thought about it before and broken it down to its very specific elements? That's what we're going to look at today and see if we can help you write an effective paragraph. Let's take a look at this paragraph here. This paragraph has each of the parts of a paragraph that we are going to be talking about today. Follow along with me as I read it aloud to you and see if you notice anything that the author is doing to make this a strong paragraph. Have you ever wondered what parts make up the water cycle? According to the text Water Cycle 1, the water cycle has three basic parts. They are evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. Evaporation is an important step where the sun warms liquid or solid water and turns it into water vapor. The water vapor then rises high into the sky. As it rises, the water vapor cools and starts to turn back into a liquid or solid form of water. This is known as condensation. The final step happens when the cooled, condensed water falls to the earth as precipitation. The four kinds of precipitation are rain, snow, sleet, and hail. After it precipitates, the sun can cause the water cycle to start over again. Those are the basic parts of the water cycle. As I read this aloud to you, did you notice anything? Did you notice that the author has given us a lot of facts about the water cycle? But did you also notice they were kind of explaining to us those facts that they were providing? Let's break it down a little bit further. I've highlighted here for you in different colors the 5 different elements of a strong, effective paragraph. You'll notice that some of the colors are used a little bit more than the other colors. That's because that is the most important information that you are going to be giving to your reader in that paragraph. So yes, you're going to want more of that than the other colors. And we're now going to learn what each of those colors stand for and what is the type of information that you're supposed to put into a strong, effective paragraph. In order to remember the elements of an effective paragraph, I want you to remember the acronym TBEAR. The T stands for topic sentence, B stands for background, E stands for evidence, A stands for analysis, and R stands for reflection. What I'm going to do for you now is break down each of these elements and explain to you what it is and what it looks like in that sample paragraph that we've looked at, and ways that you can actually write this in your own paragraph. T stands for topic sentence. The purpose of a topic sentence is to tell your reader what your paragraph is about. So in other words, it's your paragraph's main idea. You've probably been talking about main idea a lot in your language arts class, and you know that the main idea is the big point that you're trying to get across to your reader. If we're breaking it down to just a paragraph, it's telling your reader your main idea just for that one paragraph. If you're being asked to answer a question in the form of a paragraph, you can actually use words and phrases from that question to help you build your topic sentence. So let's go back to our sample paragraph and see if we can figure out what the topic sentence is. Here's our sample paragraph from before. Let's pretend that our writer is in a science class and they have been given a question on their test about the water cycle, but it was a short answer paragraph question. Let's see if, based on the topic sentence that they have written, if we can figure out what question they could have been asked to answer. So here's their topic sentence. Have you ever wondered what parts make up the water cycle? Take a couple seconds and see if you can think of a possible question that the writer could have been asked in that science class about the water cycle. Maybe you thought of one of these questions. Explain the parts of the water cycle. How does the water cycle work? What makes up the water cycle? Have you noticed a similar word between all of those questions? It might have been water cycle. Okay? That means that that is our topic. Obviously, in your topic sentence, you're going to want to introduce to your reader the main topic of what you're going to talk about in that whole paragraph. But you also want to tell them what is the big point of your topic, which is basically your main idea for the paragraph. Let's move on to the B part of our acronym, and B stands for background. This part of our formula explains where you got your information from. When you are asked to write a good, strong, effective paragraph, you need to provide evidence to your reader that supports your answer. So this part is the very first part of citing that text evidence. The background phrase is where you're going to begin explaining that evidence, but you're going to give the background of where it came from. And in order to do that, you should always tag your background phrase. What I mean by that is you should provide your reader with the title of the information, the author of that information, and the genre of it. What we mean by genre is it an article? Is it a story? Is it a video? Maybe it's a poem. You're basically telling your reader what type of text it is that you have read. Now, if you can't figure out if it's an article or if it's a story or if it's a video, you can just use the generic word text or passage for your reader to let them know that you're getting your information from another source. So let's look at our sample paragraph and see if we can figure out the background of the information. Here's our sample paragraph again. Let's figure out where is the background phrase. Look for a possible title, author, and or genre. Did you find it? It's right here. According to the text, Water Cycle 1. What's missing from this tag phrase? Well, we see that there's a title, Water Cycle 1, but is there an author? We have the generic genre of text because we don't necessarily know if it's an article or a passage, or maybe they got this information from a video. But why might the writer have left out the author of this text? It's possible that there isn't an author or one hasn't been provided for the writer to get that information. Sometimes you'll be given a passage and there won't be a clear author of that passage. If that's the case, you can leave it out. It's okay. Just put the title and the genre. And again, if you don't know if it's an article or a poem or a story, just put the generic text or passage. We're now going to talk about the two biggest parts of your effective paragraph together because they go hand in hand. So let's start with E, which stands for evidence. Once you've given the main idea or the topic sentence of your paragraph and you've also given the background of where your information is coming from, you need to now give the proof to help support your main idea. That's where your evidence comes into play. And your evidence is going to consist of any facts or data or any details that are going to support that main idea. they're going to help hold it up and prove that it is correct. Your evidence sentence could finish up your background phrase, where you started with in the text, water cycle 1, for example, and then you explain that piece of evidence. But that should not be the only piece of evidence you provide in a paragraph. In fact, a good, strong, effective paragraph will have at least 2 pieces of evidence. That means when you are reading an article or a story or a passage or a text, you need to be paying attention to some facts and some details that can help support any paragraphs that you are writing later on. This will help you in order to have enough evidence to use to explain your answer. Know that you don't always have to quote word for word that evidence that you're finding. If you do that, it's called directly quoting that information, and you can do that as long as you put it in quotation marks and tag your source. But you can also paraphrase it, which means to put it in your own words. You can do that, but again, you also still need to tag the background of that information and that evidence for your reader so they know, yes, you're putting it into your own words, but it originally came from that other source. Now let's talk about the A part of our TBEAR formula, which stands for analysis. What's so important about those details and that evidence that you gave to your reader? What other thoughts and ideas can you add to those details? Your analysis or your commentary helps your reader understand why you chose those details and how they connect back to the topic sentence. Remember that the original author of the text you're reading might have different ideas than you do, but you're using their information to help support what you are saying. The analysis is probably the most important part of the paragraph because it is your thoughts, your ideas. It's your take on the topic. And that's what your reader wants to see coming through, are your thoughts. Because of that, a good, strong, effective paragraph is going to have 2 or more analysis statements explaining each piece of evidence. So that means you're going to have, for each one piece of evidence, 2 sentences after it explaining and giving an analysis. Let's look at how the writer of our sample paragraph used evidence and analysis to make their paragraph stronger. You'll notice that the majority of their paragraph is evidence and analysis, but you might also notice that their analysis, they only have 1 sentence for each piece of evidence. They do have a lot of evidence in their paragraph, but they're not explaining it in a new way for their reader. They're mostly relying on facts rather than their own ideas and thoughts about the water cycle. In an effective, strong paragraph, you want to provide the reader with your thoughts and your ideas and back them up with facts rather than relying on the facts to give your reader all the information. So make sure that in your paragraphs, you are giving 2 analysis sentences for each piece of evidence. That might mean you only give 2 pieces of evidence to your reader, and that's okay. Rely on your thoughts and ideas and your analysis. And another way to help you with that is to only use the parts of the evidence or the quote that you actually need. Sometimes the quote will or the evidence will take place in a couple of sentences. Instead of using the whole sentence, just use the phrase that has that piece of information that is so important. And that way it'll help you keep your facts to a minimum and your analysis and your explanation of that fact to a maximum to make your paragraph even stronger. The last letter of our formula is R, which stands for reflection. This is your final sentence in your paragraph, and it's your final parting thought for your reader. Basically what you're doing is wrapping up this paragraph. So in a sentence, you're going to rewrite the topic sentence in a new way, and that's important. You want to reflect on all of the information in the paragraph, but you don't want to make your reader say, no duh, when they read your reflection sentence. What I mean by that is they shouldn't go, well, yeah, I just read it. Obviously, that's what you mean. Let's look at the sample paragraph because that'll help me explain this a little bit better. Let's look at our sample paragraph again. Is the reflection sentence there? It is, but it's not the most exciting or interesting reflection sentence. Those are the basic parts of the water cycle. The author is just very simply and hurriedly ending their paragraph, which is pretty sad because the rest of their paragraph is very well thought out, but they didn't take that time and that effort to really finalize and cinch that main idea into their final reflection paragraph and leave their reader thinking, oh yeah, that is important, rather than no duh. So maybe the writer could try this instead. Therefore, each of these basic parts has an important job in the water cycle. This reflection sentence helps the reader see and go back and understand that yes, each part of the water cycle is important. The writer would then be leaving the reader with a chance to reflect back on the rest of the information in the paragraph and understand that yes, they really have learned something rather than no duh, those are the basic parts of the water cycle you just told me. So make sure that when you are finalizing your paragraph and writing that reflection sentence, you want to leave your reader thinking. You don't want them mad at you. So remember that there are 5 parts of an effective paragraph. The first one is your topic sentence. You're going to give your reader the main idea of your paragraph. The second thing you're going to do is give the reader the background information of where your evidence is coming from. Don't forget to tag that information for them. So give the title of the article or the passage, give the author, and give the genre. Next, you're going to put that evidence in there, which is your facts and your data and your details. And remember, each effective paragraph is going to have 2 pieces of evidence. You're then going to analyze it for your reader, and you're going to explain why those details and those facts are so important for understanding the topic. And your analysis sentences should equal 2 for each piece of evidence. That means for each of your 2 pieces of evidence that you are giving to your reader, you're going to be giving 4 analysis sentences. The last thing you're going to do is reflect for your reader and leave them thinking about the topic in a new way. You don't want to leave them thinking no duh after they have finished reading your paragraph. Good luck with writing effective paragraphs, and I know you can do it if you use the TBEAR formula.